you to the BW Dialogue. Today, we'll be talking about media entertainment. And to talk about media and entertainment, we have a person who's had 5 decades of uh, leading the media and entertainment business and ideas. He's done it all. He's been in cinema, he's been in music, he's been a lyricist, he's been a producer, he's been an entrepreneur, he's now an author. So really, somebody who in the media entertainment space and in this country doesn't really need an introduction. But let me welcome Mr. Amit Khanna, who's the founder chairman of Reliance Entertainment, and some of you know him from the various multifaceted aspects that he stands for. Welcome, Mr. Khanna, to this BW
Al-
Dialogue.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Annurag, and I'm happy to be part here of the BW Dialogue.
Thank you so much. Mr. Khanna, first of all, let me start by asking how have been the last 12 months for you personally and professionally? Because
Uh,
it's been a different period than the normal times that we have.
to the extent, that we were all not traveling and not going out, but I have the last, you know, 3 or 4 years been spending most of my time in writing and talking. And so most of the offline seminars and events went online, and my writing continued as usual. So except for going out and probably meeting friends face to face and attending events like some which you organize, that's what I missed. But otherwise, it's been pretty okay.
Good
No
to
complaints.
Okay, so you've been busy reading, writing, and uh, talking to your friends, and you have a large circle of friends and people you collaborated with in the past. Now, let me come to the media and entertainment sector. Let me start by asking you about the role of cinemas. Over the last 11 months, cinemas were closed in most parts of the country. We used OTT and other digital platforms to consume content. What do you think is the future of cinemas? Some people feel we get too nostalgic about cinemas, whereas content consumption is happening in OTT. So, do you think cinemas will come back? You look at Master. Master did 200 crores in just one territory. So it tells you people are willing to come back to a cinema. So sometimes you get these contrarian views. I want to ask you, what is your view?
Well, my views have been the standard for the last 5 or 7 years. We have to understand the market dynamic. India makes, on an average, 2,000 feature films a year. This would include, the couple of hundred films which are imported. And we have only a ballpark number of 10,000 screens to screen these 200 films. In a year, there are 52 weeks. And every week, if you were to release even 10 films in India, which is, a lot, 10 new films were released every year. The fact of the matter is, please go back and check. The data is available. In no year, more than 600 films have been released in theaters. So out of the 2,000 films produced, 1,400 were in any case not going to the theaters. So what are we debating about? We are debating about whether these 600 films will continue to be screened in cinemas. Well, I think that 600 number will come down, because actually we have, out of the 10,000 screens, roughly, ballpark number of multiplex and two screen cinemas will count for 4,000 screens. So, and these 4,000 screens account for 70% of the business of all the 10,000 screens. And these 4,000 screens actually do not require more than 4 or 5 films a year to be screened. So if you have 5 films releasing every week, and that's what these cinemas need. Let's look at PVR. If PVR had 5 releases in a week, They would not be able to give screen time to all the 5 equally. And if it's 10 films in a week, then they drop out half the films. And PVR is the last. PVR and IMAX are the two largest chains. And many people go back, rewind to 2019. A lot of indie filmmakers and the smaller filmmakers used to complain, oh, but my film is not getting the appropriate screen time. They don't give me enough shows. It's not possible for 2,000 films to find screen time in 10,000 cinemas. We can't compare India with the US or with China. US has 40,000 screens. It makes 800 feature films a year. China has 60,000 screens. It makes 1,000 films. So you are making twice the number of films and you have less than 1/4 of what this country needs. So cinemas won't close down, but this mad race and this whole debate is a fake debate, because actually you are talking only about 100 films. 100 films in all the languages. This will be about 30, 35 films in Hindi, 20 each in Tamil and Telugu. Between these three categories, and then you come to Bangla and Marathi and Punjabi and Kannada, Malayalam, all these Gujarati various films. The rest of them account for the balance thing. So if you were to talk of these 100 films, the 100 marquee films actually recover 80% of the box office collections. That's one reality. It's not something which I'm imagining. The second and most important thing, which most people forget, and when mainstream media and television news starts reporting these, what is this stupid 100 crore club? If a film costs 120 crore to make, and if it does 100 crore business, then actually you are losing money. So, I mean, these numbers are, you've been in media. It's like, at the end of the day, broadcast channels were to calculate, gross revenue, which the agencies billing them, and don't subtract the GST and don't subtract the agency commission, then the broadcast revenue also will go up by 30%. So we have to first understand the structure. I think this emphasis on a movie theater release has to be done away with. Cinemas won't shut down. The growth will slow down. I mean, you will say, probably if things were 10 years ago, if you'd asked me this question, I would have said we'd keep on adding 1,000, 2,000 screens a day for the next 10 years. Now we'll probably add 50, 100 screens a day for the next 5 years, and then it'll plateau. The other important thing to note about film industry, and most people forget this, for 95% of the film, box office is only constitutes around 50 to 60% of the revenue. So the rest of the
revenues, there's now OTT revenues. Earlier it was just television, now it's OTT.
Broadcast TV used to be earlier big number. You get still, the larger films recover several crores from selling just the music rights. There is revenue from in-film advertising, from product placement. All these factors are contribute. These revenue streams are there. So this 60-40 divide will change, even in the case of the big star films, because now with the streaming platforms and the whole digital rights,
you're saying that the number of viewers it can reach by scaling up is much more than physical cinema halls. So hence,
absolutely,
both have a role to play.
Well, yeah, but And every film doesn't deserve to be released in a cinema house. It's like it's the same case. I mean, if you look at uh, online content in any space, whether it's news or media. I mean, let's look at business world. When you are only concentrating on the physical
Print copy.
media and sending out the selling printed copies, your reach was limited to the number of readers per issue sold. Now that is an add-on, so your actual physical sales may have come down, but your online viewing and subscription, you're still not concentrating on a paywall, but your numbers are of
Of
your
course,
reach is
higher,
has
bigger,
has
much bigger.
grown exponentially,
Right.
and will keep on growing. I mean, for an event like this, what we are doing now, this conversation, it would have been an invited event, and you would have had maybe 300 people attending it, and then you would try and not all. I mean, some of your events you would then tie up with a broadcast channel who would then give you non-prime time, and it would massage the ego of the event organizer and the speakers and participants. But how was the actual was it translating into revenue? Was it translating into actual viewership? No. But now with what this pandemic has done, it has technology. Along with technology, I mean, these two catalysts have accelerated the speed of change. So if we were the change was happening at 2x speed of 2x, now it's happening at the speed of 10x, and this speed is only going to accelerate further in the years to come. And that's the what I find, that most media people, not only in India but also overseas, are not prepared enough to you know monetize the potential which technology is putting forth before us.
Okay. Now let me come to the fact that digital is growing. There's no question. You talked about it. We look at the consumption numbers. We look at
Yes.
e-commerce numbers. But tell us that within digital, what are the trends that you see becoming bigger and bigger and becoming mainstream, or may replace certain other behaviors and ways of consuming content? So give us a sense of what are the trends within digital you see becoming bigger.
Every single the biggest gainer in the next 3 years, and I'm not talking about long horizon, the biggest gainer is going to be gaming. Gaming will be the second largest segment of the media industry after broadcast TV, and will overtake broadcast TV in revenue by 2025. So uh, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm talking about a country like India. We underestimate this year gaming. This year, in this financial year, gaming will overtake cinema.
Hmm. That's a big one. That's a
Yeah,
big
but
one.
in 2 years, it will overtake print.
Okay. So clearly, you're saying that gaming will become mainstream, and as
Huge,
the gaming
and a
revolution.
very big segment. We are not realizing it. It's this year may end up with revenue of close to 20,000 crores.
Okay. Now that again, so clearly, gaming is a big trend. So we need to prepare for it. As they say, if someone is eating a lunch, he may be eating your lunch. So clearly, gaming, the time that audiences spend on gaming will be at the cost of some other medium.
Absolutely, that's
No,
the biggest.
and also the revenues that will come with it. Now, tell us, in gaming, we need to produce local content. There are companies that are doing it. So you're saying increasingly there'll be more players in India that will produce content for India.
Yes, unfortunately, what is if you look at the statistics which are available, uh, uh, the largest sort of most popular games in India are still traditionally, games which are not video games. So we have Rummy, we have poker, we have Ludo, and now the fourth largest thing, and which is the fastest growing segment, is the virtual these sports, virtual
Fantasy
sports,
gaming, what we call.
fantasy gaming. Yeah,
I mean,
so fantasy
Khanna,
gaming
some people
specific
will say
to
fantasy gaming is
India, like
betting. You know,
cricket is huge. So India, that has suddenly in the last 2-3 years, that has changed the dynamic of gaming here. But look at, for example, more developed markets like US, Japan, China, South Korea, even some parts of Western Europe, where what were originally called the massively, massive MMORG gaming, the massive online role player gaming. So the games played through consoles like Xbox and Sony PlayStation, etc. That those titles, if you look at some of the big titles, are have budgets of 100 and 150 million dollars, and they rake in close to $200 million within the first year of introduction. Last year, do you know what was the size of the world gaming market industry? Make a guess. $200 billion.
clearly gaming is something whose time
We
has
which
come.
when we discuss media, we tend to take it as a minor sort of some player, business which some kids are playing. So obviously, when you ask me what is the thing, this is one substantive change. Uh,
Absolutely. Go on.
uh, we also will see increasingly, uh, and this is something which has not happened as quickly as I had expected. But you know, the whole subscription model on for online news should quicken. So at least the larger media houses will start putting, they have already started putting
Content
uh,
behind paywall.
content, newspapers behind pay in walled gardens. That trend will increase. We have India is a market which is traditionally been sensitive, is a price sensitive market. So there is always this fear that if we charge, how much will a subscriber be willing to pay, and for how many services. You know, I look at myself, and I have no financial sort of limitation of subscribing more, but I subscribe to 4 or 5 publications, 2 or 3 international newspapers, 2 or 3 Indian publications, uh, about half a dozen of the streaming platforms, and a couple of other, you know, websites. So I already subscribe to a dozen or services. It's not that I cannot afford to subscribe to more publications or services online, but there is how much can I consume, you know and now with the data analytics and big data, all these public services where I am a subscriber keep reminding me that, oh, we are missing you, you've not been to Apple TV for long, or you haven't visited a particular news source. But so I may again just sort of go for what we call digital snacking, and go and visit your that particular website. Now, let me be honest. So, for example, for the Exchange for Media group, I do visit, the Exchange for Media website regularly. I do visit Business World website regularly, but the other publications I don't visit regularly. For example, Impact or Pitch, but because I am on your mailing list, I do get mails, And when you have an event, and if there is something which interests me, I definitely watch it, or at least try and get the news about it. However, what this takes me to my next sort of prediction, which is we must learn that mere diversification, because digital, in the digital space, because unlike the real world, there is no limitation of what the number of services you can offer, or number of words, or number of articles, or number of programs or events. So, but the question is how many, instead of diversification, what's happening is everyone is attempting to increase the breadth. They are widening the reach, but nobody is concentrating on depth, the depth of the reach. So if you recall, 4 or 5 years ago, you and I were chatting once, and I had mentioned to you there is something which we tend to overlook. This is a sociological reality, and most cultural anthropologists, and mind you, cultural anthropologist seems like an esoteric term, but all the leading consumer brands in the world, all the leading media companies. So when I say media companies, I include your Googles and Facebooks and Netflix and Amazon in it, and all your large companies like P&G and Unilever and Nestle. All of them employ cultural anthropologists now, who try and understand what the human needs and wants in that particular geography, in that particular time, and the trends thereon. So we have to have faith in this data which is available, and then learn to concentrate. It's like having a diffused beam versus a focused beam. So what you need to do is
Yeah.
not enlarge your catchment area, because that will not necessarily get you the fish. You need to have more studied and deep uh, dive fishing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Khanna, for telling that, and I take that very seriously. Now, let me come on to we talked about digital, and we talked about accessing some content through paywalls, and you said that trend will become bigger, and I believe that a couple of leaders have to embrace that, and then everyone will be able to do that, because then there is parity in the offering. Of course, the bigger.
I'll give you a simple answer to this. Let's look at some of the larger media houses in the country. Look at the biggest media house, which is Times of India.
Absolutely.
Now, and please, although the financial numbers of the Times Group are never reported, but from anecdotal evidence, you can clearly discover that the maximum investment which the group has made in the last 5 years is in the digital space, not in the broadcast space, not in print. They have cut down the expenses on print and on TV, and invested in uh, the digital space. Similarly, let's look at India today. Okay, another large group. Where is the investment happening? It's again happening more in the digital space. Or you look at the broadcasters. Disney has declared globally their focus is completely on the digital streaming side. I mean, that's the chairman of the company has declared in the last period. Let's look at the large players in India like Z. Where is the investment happening? The focus is, while ZTV continues to be the major revenue earner, the largest investment is happening in Z5. Everybody keeps talking about Reliance, Jio. Jio has a basket of media properties which they bought, which they, and assimilate it. But where is the money which is being spent? The money is being spent only in the digital space. And you look at, and you look, go the other extreme. So you have these new unicorns which have emerged in the media space. I mean, look at Daily Hunt. Daily Hunt is probably the third largest player in the media space. In terms of market cap, it's probably be the also be the third largest player. And nobody would, you talk to a media person or an advertising person, and they say, oh, they'll discount. You can't write away a billion or a $1.5 billion company.
Sure.
I mean, and the amount of money which they are plowing into content, they are virtually creating a independent line of news reportage. And while the traditional TV news guys are working on a cheap and expensive model of nightly debates and slanging matches and trolling each other and on social media, the guys who are actually gathering news and disseminating it to the mass media, to the large masses, are these new
New age
upstarts.
media companies and media platforms, the content
Absolutely.
platforms.
Go back 20 years to the early days of the mobile phone. I was involved in, one of the earliest things which Reliance Entertainment did when Reliance Communications Infocom was launched in 2003, was to create mobile content for the then, Reliance platform. And one of the things which surprised us is we had films, we had, a lot of other curated content. But when we actually did the numbers, what was getting, of course, the big chunk was coming from ringtones, of the revenue from ringtones and from caller back tunes. So, but a large, and by 2010, what we in India was referred to as mobile radio was the largest contributor. And you were a part of a webinar yesterday organized by India International Center, where a leading media professional, Rajiv Mehrotra, said he's worried about media in the public space, especially broadcast. Well, the fact of the matter is, please go to any village, go out of your house and watch and talk to your, security guard, or talk to your cook. He will tell you most of the time he's watching content in his or her language, irrespective of the geography, which was not possible. I mean, he doesn't have a DTH connection, he doesn't have a cable connection on the mobile phone. And you don't have to be very tech savvy for this. You just figure out where to watch and where to listen their own program, programming which is closer to them, and they are familiar with, and that's how they consume. So this will be what will drive numbers and revenue.
Do you think you're right that all the new investments from traditional media players, even new players whom we not call media, whether a Geo or a Daily Hunt, are happening in digital content creation, digital distribution, and in digital uh, marketing to get audiences online? Now, do you think print has a chance in the future? Do you think print businesses in India, large print businesses like Times of India, HT, so on, will be able to reinvent themselves like New York Times, Washington Post, who have done
But
very high quality content, invested in content, and been able to get paid subscribers? Do you see that happening over the next few
uh,
years?
it should happen. Whether it will happen, I have my doubts. Because first of all, let's look at New York Times. It's a very interesting example which you've given. This year, New York Times digital revenue, subscriber revenue, will overtake the global advertising revenue.
Right.
So they have reinvented themselves.
Right.
Whether any Indian publication will do this in the next 5 years, I'm doubtful. So what they are looking at is, unless they have the confidence that my circulation, physical circulation may come down drastically, but my viewership will not come down, and hence I must invest in better coverage of events and people and places which are not necessarily uh, coterminous with the traditional format of print. So you cannot just repurpose material which is written for the print and then put it on behind a paywall. What I see most people doing is, they say, well, if you want to hear a longer version of this interview, please go to www.xyz.com. But, arey boss, why can't you do an interview only for that paywall? So if I want, and say, if you want to watch an interview with and uh, Mr. Chandra of Tata Sons, or uh, Sunil Mittal, or whoever, then you have to go to this is not available in the newspaper. It is going to be available behind the paywall, and stuff like this.
You're saying the deep and differentiated content.
Well, not necessarily,
People are
even not. It may not be even everything doesn't need to be deep, but it has to be differentiated from the actual print and the physical format. Same problem was the reason what has delayed online viewing of TV programming in India, because there's no original content. Forget the stuff which is being commissioned now for the streaming platform services. The traditional broadcasters were only repurposing their existing content and offering me that facility. So when view VOD came, uh, your cable operator, or your now DTH, for example, Tata Sky now has a subscriber box which has not only a VOD service built in, but it also offers you the an OTT facility. So there, the platform guys are more innovative, and they are actually enlarging the cake which they have. The content providers and creators are happy just because they are going on to another platform. They are not creating exclusive content for that particular platform. So why cannot, for example, and I'm sure the platform owners will start doing it. The Times of India group say, let me curate a special newspaper for DTH subscribers. Now that is where the lateral expansion will happen. Why can't there be an India Today or a Business World which is available to cable TV subscribers? For to even, and imagine now, today you do not require large video cameras and large crews to go and shoot this. So if you are covering a business event, or even a simple thing like stock market, earlier you had to have a large paraphernalia, you had to have digital tickers, and you have to have Reuters and and Bloomberg and access to all that. Now all that is in the public domain. So you have a guy with a mobile camera just going to the NSE or the BSE, this thing, or a stock broker's office, and you have the whole minute by minute stock market report.
The nature of content has to be differentiated for people to pay, and the ability to create differentiated content easier with the devices available and the kind of
it,
scenario that
there are two things. Some of it can be the same, because there are certain events which are, headlines of the day. Some particular event, something has happened, a natural disaster, or the epidemic, or so the new vaccination drive, or the stock market crash, or any, or some happening in the border. All these, they have a certain universality, but otherwise, the print and the broadcast, the two traditional media, have to have the confidence in themselves to create alternate content from the same resources for these new formats. That's where the growth and the revenue will come.
fantastic. And why do you think Indian companies are so slow to kind of, they can see the writing on the wall, they can see the trends. Why are not they moving fast enough in that direction?
Nobody loves to upset the status quo, whether it's the politicians, the bureaucracy, or establishment in any large businesses. It's, they, very few people have the adventurism and the foresight to look ahead. The rest of them are, they take tentative steps. You can't take half steps. You must have the confidence to, let's look at a publication like the Hindu, which is one of the most venerated, mm, newspaper groups in the country. They were one of the earliest to put their, newspapers behind the paywall. But there's no differentiated content. It's the, what they do is they have an edited version, a smaller version for print, and they have a longer version for the, if you want to read further, please subscribe. No, I may not necessarily want to read that further, but I want to read other stuff further, which are you willing to provide me? Because, as I said, digital space is not constrained, that I don't have 16 pages or 24 pages limited. So, limitation. So I can actually offer a much wider scope depending upon my, if you go back and look back at the growth of the print, what happened? Why did all the leading newspapers, including magazine, went into, when the print boom happened in the 80s, when computerization first came in and offset printing, all the compositing and the formatting became digital. Everybody started first with facsimile edition, then they started with the regional editions. So suddenly you had Dainik Bhaskar and Jagran having and 15, 20 editions, 30 editions, and then Times of India also followed suit, and then the others. This limitation of, here digital space allows print and broadcasters to customize content for geographies, for, we have to get out of this SEC, mindset of the advertising fraternity. That's an outdated 30-year-old metric. You have to understand where the consumer sits, where is the interest of the local viewer, the local population, what are the interests, and cater to that. So here, it takes me back, and very briefly, I'll mention something which I started with a little earlier, and then we digressed. I had once mentioned to you about trying to measure the density of communication. We have not paid much attention to it, about this globally. There have been some studies. What happens is that today, because you have a barrage of information being thrown at you, you are bombarded with a lot of information and content. So subconsciously, subliminally, there are layers and layers of engagement. We talked about 20 years ago, for example, the catchphrase was, we are living in the attention economy. 10 years ago, people started, and these are the forward-looking people, started talking about that, oh, we have moved from the attention economy to the engagement economy. It's no longer in the engagement economy also. It is no longer a fight for the eyeballs. It is no longer, we are still counting, how many followers and how many viewers I have on a streaming platform, but I don't see how much revenue those guys are giving me. And I'm making no attempts to it. So the density of communication will determine the hierarchy of engagement, which then leads to the hierarchy of monetization. And it's please enlarge the share of, not the share of the wallet, but you have to enlarge the wallet itself. India's per capita spend on media and entertainment as a percentage of GDP is among the lowest in the world. Our advertising fraternity, for example, 75 years after the independence, are happy with a less than $10 billion advertising industry. I mean, what kind of a growth are we talking about? You go and sit in a small group of the fraternity and go to Cannes and party and or win obscure awards, or keep arranging self backslapping award functions. But what are you doing to increase the revenue? I mean, you are happy with the 8, 10, 15% growth when the country has moved from a $1 trillion economy to a $3 trillion economy, and we are talking of a $5 trillion economy. What is going to drive this growth? It's not merely capital expenditure. It's going to be consumption. So wherever there is consumption, you need the advertising and marketing spend needs to increase. And when the advertising and marketing spend increases, the potential of revenue for all media vehicles increases. It's as fundamental as that.
So if I had to ask you, let me ask you about another area, in terms of valuations of media companies, what is your view? Have we been able to factor the potential of the media companies to pivot, to be able to take some of the ideas that we're talking about? So are they undervalued, overvalued? What is your view?
We are undercapitalized, undervalued.
We are undercapitalized, undervalued.
Undervalued. We are fighting. We should be fighting. If, say, we were supposed to be fighting in the heavyweight category, we are still fighting in the bantamweight category. At least move from the bantamweight category to lightweight category, if not in the heavyweight. First, enlarge your ambition. Like I keep telling my film industry friends and some of these younger, the stars of today, why are you guys happy with the 200 crore, 300 crore box office? Your benchmark should be that, oh, I should have a 1,000 crore film every year. Wow. And what is a 1,000 crore film? Please understand, in Hollywood, we've seen global releases where in normal times, and those times are not going to be far away, where the first weekend collections is $100 million. So here, there are only 2 films which have crossed 100 million in their lifetime, in the whole history of Indian cinema. Similarly, for other, what is
You're saying we in the media and entertainment have to change our thinking and mindset to be able to aim higher, to aim bigger.
Enlarge your, think big. Think big. Try and, as I said, invest bigger money, and money is available. There's so much liquidity in the market. I mean, there are new vehicles like SPAC, for example, which is coming in, which is bringing in billions of dollars. It will come to India also very soon. And media companies will be among the first to do it. So actually, look at the private equity in media business. You know, when Blackstone first invested in Jagran, what did they invest in? $100 million, and it shook the whole print industry and changed the dynamic. Same thing has to happen. The day Times of India decides this is my revenue potential, Bennett Coleman, there's no reason why it can't be a $10 billion company if it is able to
As you are
knit
saying,
everything.
Mr. Amit Khanna is saying that the opportunities exist, the consumers are evolved, they're willing to pay for differentiated and deep content, and we need to cast our net wider. While first we need to make it deeper, uh, and he
And
says
aim higher.
aim higher. The ambition is to bigger. The market exists, and clearly he's made a big prediction that the gaming domain we knew would be big, but he's saying it will be the second largest revenue earner in the media entertainment segment, and it's an industry to watch for. So if the gaming industry grows, clearly the platforms will grow, the content creators will grow, the distribution partners in the gaming business will grow, and really the growth of gaming will happen on multiple screens. It may become a mainstream today. We play it on a small screen. Tomorrow, gaming maybe like a live gaming, which actually happens in some parts of the world, where it happens in a big arena, so to say. So thank you, Mr. Khanna, for talking to us. Just last question. Today I kept saying we are in a 3C economy: a contactless, compassionate, and collaborative economy. But we are moving to a hybrid economy. In every business, there'll be, now that we will have choice of either being virtual or being face to face. So tell us, do you really believe? I believe that the hybrid economy will reward the physical economy by making it more premium. So, for example, let's take cinema. Watching a movie in a cinema hall, still a great experience. It's an experience. Uh, so maybe that will be a premiumly priced.
The answer to this question is very simple. Let me first answer with cinema, and then we'll come to broadcast, and then everything else. 1 billion people at the maximum peak visit cinema houses in India every year. But the potential audience and the people who watch it on TV, on various other platforms, is close to 3 billion. So, because we are concentrating on that 1 billion customers, we try and get 60-70% of our revenue from them, and the only 20% revenue from the 2 billion other customers. So in a hybrid model also, you have to understand where your priorities lie. As I said, cinemas will not close down. The multiplexes companies will do well, but they will form only 20-25% of the total box office. For the large media companies, they can continue. India is one of the few markets where the printed newspapers on paper will continue at least through this decade. But the revenue sharing of the digital space will increase. I mean, you have one simple answer to your question is provided by you and your other colleagues. The amount of revenue which you earn from, in the normal course of time, which will happen now, from organizing live events, is more than the what the main newspaper is giving you.
Advertising revenue in the name.
Yeah. So if you were to rework your business model and say, well, this is not an ancillary activity, this is as much a separate part of our business operation as the printed word, or as in case of films, the film distribution model. They have to be add-ons. They cannot be just a supplementary revenue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amit Khanna, for talking to us. Look forward to another deep conversation with you soon again. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.